Hetepu, Namaste, Assalamu Alaikum, Haru Nefer. This is Kasank Ma Keparu with another live video for you. And today I want to talk about energy pendulums. And this is coming out of Adit Zeeland's reality Transurfing. Now, basically, Zeeland, he is a Russian quantum physicist. And what he has done is he has created an amazing, or authored an amazing book or series of books titled Reality Transurfing. And this is a combination of different, I believe, books put together, but you can see it right here, Reality Transurfing. And if it's a very thick book, you know. If you guys want to basically read the book, you can purchase it off Amazon. But if you are a Patreon supporter, I've included in there the audio version of this, which is about 8 or 9 hours, so you can listen to it. It's really, it's a good read, and if you listen to it, it's very engaging. But one of the things that I wanted to talk about was that there were only 2 books in my life that really had a profound impact on me. The first one was the Metunet Volume 1 by Ra'u Nefa Amen. That book changed my life. It was phenomenal. And I still go back and read it. I use it as a source. Okay. The next one is this one, Reality Transurfing, because, you know, I've only recently got involved with reading it. And prior to that, I was teaching my own perspective on things, which was a little different than what I learned in the priesthood. And there weren't too many people out there who I found was on the same level, or not, I shouldn't say level, but was aligned with what I was teaching. So, you know, there wasn't like a big community of people who understood how to change reality. The only community that was out there was those who were following things like the law of attraction. You know what I mean? Or realistically, the biggest one is The Secret. And I think the Secret is full of shit because it's based on acquiring money. It's based on greed, selfishness, and it doesn't look at the bigger picture of spiritual growth, you know? So when Zeeland, he came along, and I kind of stumbled onto his book, it just was eye-opening. This was like a life-changing experience. I was so elated to read this because he actually, from a quantum physics perspective, broke it down and explained to you how you can create the reality that you desire, how you don't have to live in this world of darkness and suffering, you know. And again, this goes along the lines of what I was teaching, okay? And he gets into something that's very deep, and many of you know that I've touched on the subject of ergobores, okay? And these are spiritual or entities that control human behavior. He calls it energy pendulums. And I'm going to differentiate the two and get into that. But one of the things that you have to understand that there a lot of human behavior that we think is independent and free is not so. We are controlled by these energy pendulums or these ergomores, and some are self-generated, meaning when a population of people get together and they share the same ideology, it creates a spirit, an ergomore, that then controls and dictates process to them, or way of life to them. The other way is you have master magicians or black magicians who will do secret rituals where they will create ergomores to direct the destiny of humankind. So they could create, for example, an ergomore who will influence people to now become part of like the LGBT community, to make it grow and make it bigger. They have created, and this is one of the first things I came out the gate talking about, they created an ergomore or an energy pendulum, one of racism. And this is one where you'll have a lot of like skinheads, neo-Nazi groups become aligned with. They'll find camaraderie in each other, and it creates this entity, the ergomore or the energy pendulum, which then controls their actions. And it's also it's like an energy vampire too, because it's sucking energy from individuals. So that's why I talk a lot about when you're dealing with things like racism, that you don't look at your brothers next to you But you have to look at what's really pulling the strings, the puppet master, the real puppet master. You understand? Now, that doesn't mean that those individuals who engaged in racism and white supremacy, we don't hold them accountable for their role. Yes, we should hold them accountable. But at the end of the day, if you, say, for example, if you bring the full power of the judicial system or the law down upon these individuals, what's going to happen is that someone else will come and take their place. The energy of racism will self-generate or regenerate, again, because you have the pendulum that's in control. And while I'm on that topic, I want to bring to your attention an article that just came out that I read recently. And let me just bring it up on the screen. Here we go. So this says basically, you see this woman, obviously she's white, and it says scientists mapped the genome of ancient Egyptian kings, and they weren't from Africa. So again, here you see them trying to make this claim that the ancient Egyptians weren't black. And it's very antagonizing, and it's trying to create this strife between blacks and whites. It's definitely trying to play upon the race game. As you go further, and you know, they've always claiming to stick by science. It says the first ever genetic analysis of mummies found that ancient Egyptian kings were more closely related to the West Asians than Africans, according to the study published Tuesday by the scientists at the Max Planck Institute. And Planck is a measure of time. So just so you understand, Max Planck came along and put together the smallest measure of time. So anyway, the research found that the ancient Egyptians were most closely related to the Neolithic, Levantine, and Antholithian and European populations. The mummies tested did not share strong genetic links to Africa, often found in modern Egyptians. Okay, so we're getting into the bullshit here, you know. So they're playing with words, and what you have to understand is when they do these genetic tests of mummies, they're cherry picking. They pick exactly which mummies they want to test, and usually it's from one of the newer kingdoms. When and let me just talk a little bit about that. One of the reasons why Egypt fell is that Egypt was located in northeast Africa along the coastal line, and that coastal line they did trade with Greeks and the Romans, and as the trading began, so did the mixing and interracial mixing and things of that nature. And what you have is not the native-born Egyptians who control the coastal line. So if you control the coastline, you can control trading. If you control trading, you can control the lifeblood of Egypt, right? So what you have to understand, this is very important, is that Egypt basically, and during that time, Egypt, Rome, and Greece were a cosmopolitan. It was very racially diverse. Not like you see on TV, because when they show you things like gladiators, all white people, and that's not how it was. And in fact, recently they talked about how some of the Greek statues and some of the other statues of antiquity, that they purposely removed the paint, which would have shown them of a darker skin hue. Okay, and this is an effort to again erase from history the contributions that native indigenous people have given. And I've always touched upon individuals like Max Egan and what he's trying to do and rewrite history to make it seem like white people are victims and things of that nature. And it touches on upon the things I said, that, you know, if you look at indigenous people of hue, they are integrated brain thinkers. So you know that the integrated brain thinkers were the one that gave birth to civilization and advanced civilization, because as they dig and they do their archaeological research, they're finding that so-called primitive man or woman was not primitive at all, that they lived in a very advanced culture, at least morally upright and advanced, okay, and technologically advanced as well. And we're beginning to realize that our history has been rewritten and changed, okay, because they wanted to originally paint the darker skin hue cultures as very, very animalistic, primitive, you know, but now the evidence is coming out that when they dig deeper, they keep finding these ancient advanced tools, like batteries, like plans for airplanes, you know, moving cars. And they can't deny the fact that these cultures now were advanced. So their only alternative now is to do like in this article, where they have to now say, well, the ancient cultures weren't primitive, but they were advanced, but they were white. You know, so they're playing games again, and trying to claim this is their own. And you've seen that they did this earlier this year with Queen Nefertiti, you know, trying to claim that, you know, you know, that she represented the common Egyptian woman when she did not. All right. So keep that in mind. Now, what am I saying here? Now, we could go after these scientists for telling really egregious lies. We can go after them. But what you have to understand is that even if you go after them, the herbivore that controls these individuals and subjugate them is still a powerful entity, and it will only go on to use other people. So, and what I love is in Zealand's book, Reality Transurfing, he gets down to the nuts and bolts. He breaks it down into what is an energy pendulum, okay? He really talks about that in a way that you can understand it. And not only just does he talk about the idea of creating your own reality, but he talks about how do you get out from these pendulums from controlling you. Because you have to understand, these pendulums also control culture. What you think is your culture, like for example, hip hop, right? Hip hop is that's an energy pendulum. That is an ergomore that's controlling it in an attempt to basically divert the attention of the masses of African Americans away from their true culture. So they have now defined and codified their culture as hip hop, not as one of occult magic or one of African. One that should be led by the ancient shaman and Shah women, but one that's just purely hip-hop, which is based on chauvinistic ideas, sexism, and the glorification of the ego and money, and the acquiring of material possessions. So that's all left-brain things, okay? So I'm sorry, let me just go into a little bit more detail about this. So it's an attempt to really divert your attention, and they've really been successful in doing it. So it's already on its way. Sorry, there we go. Okay, so it's already on its way, and it's taking a life of its own. And what you need to understand about an ergomore or an energy pendulum is that one of the things that it does is it fights to survive. So it will not go without a fight. You know what I mean? And you as an individual cannot be successful in a battle against an energy pendulum. You can't, because it's too powerful. So if you're talking about, you know, like individuals like Dr. Martin Luther King, Malcolm X, or whoever you idolize, Gandhi or whatever, going against racism, even though Gandhi didn't, you're not going to be victorious. You understand? And this is the difference between left and right brain. Left brain tends to look at symptoms, and the right brain wants to get to the core of the matter. And the core of the matter is that we have to deal with these herbivores or these energy pendulums. And you have to also understand, because if you're going to live by the Ma'at principle and the Sekert principle, meaning that a place for everything and everything in its place, you have to respect those pendulums, you respect those ergomores, because you have to say that they have a place in our lives, that they have a right to live. And this is something that Western man in his left brain thinking is very polarized. Either it's life or it's death, either it's right or it's wrong, either it's black or it's white. Well, you know, that's not how we want to live our lives. Ma'at talks about harmony, talks about balance. Ma'at, when she sends in Haruka Hudi to enforce justice, he is not to punish you, but to bring balance back to the equation. So you have to understand that the whole idea of being righteous is not to destroy an energy pendulum, because you're not going to be able to do that, but it's to bring harmony and balance back into the equation. This is why when you see people who are who you consider to be the teaching Kemetic philosophy or teaching spiritualism, and all they talk about is the enemies, or the Illuminati is your enemy and destroying your enemy, or Christians who talk about the devil and all. That's polarized, sick thinking. Remember, in the story of Asar, Set, the ancient Kemetic mythology, Heru never killed Set, even though Set did some really awful things in ancient Kemet. Heru said, Set, there is a place for you, even though you killed my father and you subjugated all of those people in Kemet, there is still a place for you. So you have to understand that there's only the I, there's only oneness, and oneness cannot oppose itself because there's nothing outside of itself to oppose itself. You know what I mean? If that makes sense. So you can't technically be against yourself if you understand that all things are there to further your spiritual development. Any obstacle or challenge that you encounter in life is there as just a means for you to grow, to learn who you are, to flex your spiritual muscle. It is not there for you to take up this grand cause against it and to eradicate it like we see with our government. Every president that comes into office has to create a fictitious enemy, whether it's Saddam Hussein, whether it's North Korea, always an enemy, So we have to keep this in mind. And the one thing that we can be successful in life by practicing is what Tahuti tells us: nothing has a quality in and of itself. So when you're looking at things, look at things from the perspective of you're in the gallery observing paintings. That you have no right to say, I don't like this painting, remove it. No, this is not your gallery. You're just looking at the paintings. And do not judge. Just look at the paintings with an open mind. Because when you place a label and a definition onto something, what happens? Then you bring a meaning to it, and that meaning is under the control of a pendulum, ergomore, and now you become subjugated under it. You understand what I'm saying? Because you are subscribing to that belief system. If I say that there isn't hell, and if I don't do the right things in life, I'm going to go to hell, well, I've already then created a belief system. And if you understand how reality works, whatever belief that is dominant within you is manifested in this fourth dimensional experience, okay? So anyway, before I go any further, let me just greet all of the Magi's in here. I'm sorry, I got so many damn monitors open. So Mike, Hetepu, Darren, Mr. Darrell, Haru Nefer, Angel, Hetepu. So who else do we have in Suan, Hetepu, Osset, always good to see you, Haru Nefer, and Carletta, Hetepu. All right. So if you guys are getting an opportunity, please feel free to donate to the channel. Your donation will be appreciated, as always. So anything, we have to watch out for these articles and publications which seek to antagonize and polarize us based on racial differences, based on genders. Because right now the chief thing that they want to do is create a gender war. To really prop up feminism, to antagonize white males. So just be on the lookout for that. That's why I talk to a lot of people in, like for example, the LGBT community, and I warn them against what they're trying to do, because the ruling elite, the Illuminati, doesn't care about their rights. The LGBT, they don't care about their rights. They only want to use them. Just in the same way as the ruling elite doesn't care about the rights of African Americans. They just want to use African Americans, and they get African Americans to play the victim card, and that antagonizes whites. Going around calling them white privilege. And which is I'm not saying that that's not true, but what I'm saying is when you continually pull that card, it creates it polarizes people and creates antagonism. And antagonizes them, and that's the one thing that we want to steer clear of. So. Again, the book is called Reality Transurfing, and let me just read from a chapter here which talks about pendulums, because this is so phenomenal. It is so phenomenal. Listen, if you get any book in your library at home, if you only get one or two books, get the Meduna Ter Volume 1 by Ra'u Nefer Amen, and the other book is this book. these books will change your life, and these are the books that you want to live your life by. So let me go into a little bit about what he says. I'm not going to read too much because there's a lot here. You might be surprised that all things in this list qualify as pendulums. So he talks about what is a pendulum. Any structure whose particular features were created by collective thought energy represents a pendulum. Generally speaking, all living beings capable of radiating energy at a particular vibration will sooner or later form an energy pendulum. Examples of pendulums in nature are bacterial colonies, populations of living creatures, schools of fish, herds of animals, forests, piranhas, ant hills. Essentially, any organized, homogeneous structure made up of living organisms can be a pendulum. Every living organism represents a single unit of energy, and so can also be considered an elementary pendulum. When a group of individual pendulums begin to sway in unison, a group of pendulum is created which looms over its followers like a superstructure. The group pendulum exists as an independent entity and sets rules for its adherents. Check that out. Let me read that again. The group pendulum exists as an independent entity and sets rules for its adherents to follow, partly to keep them together, but also to attract new ones. This type of entity is independent in the sense that it develops according to its own laws. Its adherents are unaware of the fact that they are acting in accordance with the laws of the pendulum and not their own will. For example, a bureaucratic apparatus develops an independent structure irrespective of the will of its individual officials. Of course, an influential official is free to make their own decisions, but only to the extent that they do not contradict the laws of the system. Otherwise, that particular adherent will be rejected by the pendulum. Even people who represent individual pendulums are not always aware of their true motives. Energy vampires being one such example. So, my beloved, what I'm saying to you is you think that your actions are independent. You think that what you do is based on your own free will, and that is not so. That is not so whatsoever. And I noticed this very years ago from the early start of hip-hop, and I began to see a lot of young black males just had this passion and compulsion to get into hip-hop, and I was like, this seems like a weird cult. What is going on? You know, and that's when I began to realize that there was this energy pendulum or this ergomore that existed and was controlling and directing the lives of these young African Americans to sway them from their true understanding of themselves as God men and God women, and to divert them. Now, as you see, you must obey the laws of this pendulum, or it will reject you or punish you. Remember, these are intelligent energies. They're very intelligent. And they're intelligent as far as they're not omnipotent or all-seeing or all-present beings. They only are intelligent as far as their purpose is concerned. Like, for example, when you have a crab, the crab's purpose is to clean the bottom of the ocean. That's the purpose it serves. It doesn't need to know how to do trigonometry. Okay, what does the crab need trigonometry for? So ergomore or energy pendulum just needs to understand how to operate within the confines of that rap industry, or the confines of the neo-Nazi movement, or the confines of the democratic movement, or the confines of feminism. That's all it needs to understand, is how to manipulate, bring in followers, and create its rules and grow. That's all it needs to understand. But simply because it is that elemental, or that pendulum, doesn't mean that it's stupid. And remember, it'll fight tooth and nail to survive. So if it feels attacked, or it feels that its life is in danger, then you got a major problem to deal with. And this is why we encounter in life what we think is good luck, bad luck. We don't know. We think that all this is caused maybe by our karma or things that are going on, but really you have those pendulums that are saying to us, you know, if you don't do my bidding, then this is going to happen. All right? So you have individuals out there, and I was arguing with one young woman on the chat room where she was talking about control, and she wanted to be controlled. I said, you are controlled. Whether you realize it or not, you are controlled. And her purpose was saying that was that I don't want to be controlled by an oracle. I said, well, oracle's going to tell you how to get out of that control matrix. All right, but you're already damn near controlled, you know, in every step in the way you do. That's why we call this a matrix. You understand? So I want you to keep those in mind and really understand what you're dealing with. Is that you think that you may have free will, but I've always said, you know, a freedom exists within parameters. All right, you're not totally free to do whatever you want. Okay, because according to the 100 monkey principle, which is one of the things that creates these pendulums, is that, you know, your thoughts and your actions are transferable. They transfer onto other people, and they pick them up and they act in accordance. All right, so let's understand that. So I want you guys also, on that same note, to when you're looking at these other spiritual teachers, and I know you guys go out there and you're listening to other people, understand the difference between information and applying the information to one's life. This book is not meant to you to get an intellectual orgasm off. You're not here to get an intellectual masturbation going. You're here to use this as a means to live your life, to apply it to your life, so that you can shift to another reality where you won't have to deal with these evil forces. You understand? And that's what I think Zealand's contribution to humanity or mankind is about. It's like, I'm trying to get people to have a better quality of life and not be subjugated to these evil forces out there which only seek to destroy you. All right? But we know, again, as 2D tells us, that nothing has a quality in itself. So what we think are our enemies are really those here to help us spiritually grow. And Bruce Lee said it, there's only the I, you know. So I want to thank you all for tuning into this live broadcast. And if you have any questions, feel free to put them in the description box, or the chat box. And make sure you hit the like button on this video and subscribe to my channel if this is your first time watching. And contribute to the channel. We have a PayPal link. You can donate one time through PayPal or become a Patreon supporter. You can do so for $5, $1, whatever you can afford. And on that Patreon, we have a lot of exclusive videos, white papers, a lot of great things that I don't share with you on this YouTube channel. And also, I have the book here. Like I said, I have the audio version of this book. It's free. It's on Patreon for Patreon supporters, so you can listen to it at your leisure. All right? And there's also some other great material. So, until my next live broadcast, this is Kasank Ma'a Keparu, son of Tehuti and Ma'at, and Amin Ra.